I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Seth with Hornady. Thanks for tuning in on the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, and I'm joined today live at the Dallas Safari Club by Dave Fulson of Safari Classics. Dave, thanks for sitting down with me.
Seth, we've been trying to do this for a while. I've really been looking forward to it, and here we are at I can't think of a better place to do it than the DSC convention.
This is an amazing convention. You know, it's one that I've been to several times, and it's the first really trade show, if you will, of the year for us as a manufacturer. And it's like coming back to family. You can't walk 20 yards down the booth without running into people you know or you met last year, and it really feels like it's a family environment. It's a fun environment, and we love coming to this place.
You know, people ask me, tell me about the DSC convention, and I always start by saying, well, it's a place where the entire hunting world comes to Dallas for 4 days in January, and it is really the greatest gathering of hunters and hunter conservationists on planet Earth. I mean, there's not a show to match it. You know, manufacturers are here, outfitters are here, all of our television sponsors are here, and the people, and we'll talk about our TV shows, but it's a great way to talk, one-on-one with folks that tune in every week and make our TV show possible and hear their comments and, pats on the back are always nice to hear. And
Indeed.
It's just, like you said, a great gathering of old friends, and every year you're going to make a lot of new friends. And, of course, we all are making new customers as well and getting to interface with our old customers. And it's just the most unique gathering of like-minded people anywhere on Earth.
I have to agree, and you mentioned a really good point there, is that it's from the world. You know, it's there's a lot of cool trade shows and a lot of cool gatherings around the country. But this one brings so many people from so many other parts of the world. And when you do that, you get a really eclectic group. Any type of conservation, any type of hunting that you're interested in, you can find it here. And then the fact that we're in beautiful Texas, you could invite nobody else, and Texas could support this whole show just with Texans.
Well, it's absolutely true. And no matter where you come from, I think one of the things that our when we call all of our vendors partners, because that's exactly what they are at DSC. They're seen as partners. We're all in this together, and we constantly hear Texas hospitality, DSC. I mean, you are made to feel welcome when you're here, because you really are welcome. And then they enjoy having us here. They appreciate the business. They appreciate the partnership, and they're just not a friendlier place in the world. And of course, being a native Texan, that always makes me feel good. When people, just say, just the attitude, everybody's friendly and everybody's happy, and everybody, you can look at all these people are having a good time looking at new products, and there's not a place like it, Seth.
That's true. And I love to see that as the crowds show up, you've got the 3-year-old that's running around with our Hornady ball cap on, and they bring the family, and that's cool too. So to change gears a little bit, now Hornady and Safari Classics have had a really great relationship, done a lot of cool things, and likewise with the Dallas Safari Club. But before we get there, Dave, you mentioned you were a Texan. Growing up in Texas, you're running around hunting. What got you into the outdoors, and then what led to what became Safari Classics?
Seth, my story is a little bit different, because when most people meet me, and maybe they come over to your house, and my wife tells people our house is kind of like if Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's had a baby. That's what it looks like. But they say, boy, you must have come from a big hunting family. My dad was a fisherman. Nobody in my family hunted. My dad had probably killed 100 ducks and a couple of 100 doves in his life. But I always tell people, for the same reason a English pointer gets up when he's 6 weeks old and points at a butterfly, he doesn't know exactly why he's doing it, but it just feels right. And maybe it's some kind of instinct, but I knew that I was always interested in the outdoors, and I always wanted to be outside, and, from the BB gun up to, double, express rifles and stuff. I just always knew this was the place for me. And Seth, I just turned 63. I have never had a job outside of the outdoor hunting and fishing business. And, hunting's been certainly the primary, part of my livelihood. But it is. I really did turn a vacation into a vocation.
Yeah.
So, but I started like most kids. I was fortunate. I had to. You all got to be introduced. And while my parents, did not understand this phobic desire of mine, to keep doing things and wanting to travel and go to scary places that probably scared them to death at a very early age.
Right.
It's I was dedicated to doing it, and I think if you find out strongly enough the what, you'll come up with the how.
Sure.
And so, I eventually had some friends that, dads had deer leases, and it was, get invited to this, a whitetail, then an antelope, and, then one day I want to maybe, in some dream world, I get to shoot an elk, and then maybe a bear, and then the dream of all dreams, because I was a voracious reader, I still am, this place called Africa. One day. Now, I grew up a very blue-collar family, kid from Hurst, Texas, and I thought my chances of going to Africa would be on par of, being the pilot on the space shuttle.
Yeah, going to the moon.
But it's funny. Like I said, I was very clear on what I wanted, and I just had to figure out the how. And eventually, that elk came along, the bears came along, and then Africa. And I say today, we hear the term "I'm an African American." For years and years, I could probably qualify as an American African because I've
spent a lot of time there.
I've spent a great deal of my professional career and certainly my adult life in the Dark Continent, and you've been there. I mean, it is a soul grabber, and it is anybody that's experienced it, will agree that it just does something to you. And I like hunting. I mean, I'll get it. Excuse me. I mean, I'll get excited. Next week I'm gonna be trying to kill some bull mallards, and I'll just that's just as fun for me as a bull elephant these days.
Wow.
There's but hunting has been good to me, and I have in turn as a fully dedicated conservationist, that's a hunter, tried to return everything this great sport's given me.
That's awesome. So, what was Safari Classics? How did that come along and turning, like you said, the vacation into vocation?
Well, Seth, I've got two partners, of course, Tim Dancliffe and Christy Funk. And Tim and I started the company, and Tim had a little company called Timbuktu Sporting Adventures. Now, he had worked for Anheuser-Busch for 15 years, and he had retired at a relatively early age, and he was booking hunts and was actually doing some filming in Africa, just basically trying to get promotional material to bring back and show friends.
This is what we can do.
Yeah. I was doing the same thing in a company called Total Outdoor Adventures, and it was also a guiding and outfitting business that I ran over about a 3-state area. But those of you that may know Mark Sullivan, used to produce a bunch of stuff, Death on the Run, Death in the This, Death at Your Feet. And Mark was known for that, charging footage of elephants, especially buffalo. And, he pushed some limits, but I couldn't afford to write the check to get to Africa, but a camera got me started.
Okay.
And Mark had heard a little bit about my work, took me over there, and I think I got a lifetime of charges and a couple of years, filming with Mark, and I kind of developed a reputation of a, guy that would, wouldn't throw the camera down and run with an elephant inbound at 10 yards. And one thing led to another, and Tim and I actually met. He was a president of a local SCI chapter, and I joined that back in the day. And Tim and I just kind of found each other. He was doing the same thing I was doing. I was, doing it in different areas, but we had a pretty big film library together. So we decided we were going to hit it big, and we were going to produce some, and it was back in VHS days.
Oh yeah,
and made a tape called Bush Tracks, and it was a conglomeration of different hunts we'd filmed, jumping around Africa. Then our second one was called Tracks Across Africa. And, we thought we were doing really good. I think we were clearing about $8 per DVD, but really it was great marketing for us.
Okay.
And it got us started. Well, we eventually decided to join forces. That time we came out with a groundbreaking DVD, and it was with Craig Boddington. Everybody knows Craig.
Everybody knows Craig.
Called Boddington on Buffalo. We were going to take, Craig, and we were going to excuse me, we were going to go to Zimbabwe. We were going to do the end-all buffalo hunting, A to Z. And, I mean, I am still proud. That's been 22 years ago, 23 years ago. I'm still proud of that movie because it still stands up. Nothing in it has changed. A few of the places have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, where you're hunting. But, you know, the information is the same. That took off so good. We did another one. We did a Boddington on leopard, and then we eventually did a Boddington on the whole series. But we took it to the Outdoor Channel. We took our concept to the Outdoor Channel. And at first, our first year, the fella king, you know, there was a guy named Wade Sherman there. And he said, well, look, we told him about our concept. I said, we're doing stuff nobody else is doing. You know, we're not shooting whitetails and turkeys. We are doing Africa, and it's 95% dangerous game. And, of course, we brought a highlight reel and a sizzle reel. And he looked at it, and he said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. People make fun of us, say we're the deer and turkey and bass deal. But that's what people do. And people don't want to watch stuff that they can't personally do. Seth, you've been around me enough. You know, I can have a third-degree black belt in sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, Wayne, let me ask you that. I want to challenge you on that theory. I said, we just got through, this was like in February, we had the meeting. I said, in January, they had a little sporting event called the Super Bowl. And I don't remember how many billion people turned into that, but there's only 52 guys per team, and there's, 32 teams. So that tells me a whole lot of folks that'll never show up in an NFL training camp and put on pads enjoy that sport.
Right.
Just like we all watched Evel Knievel, when he was going to jump, but I never thought about jumping over Caesar's Palace or, any of the stuff,
the flaming rings and the school buses.
Well, what was that Seth Rogen show where they would eat the cave-dwelling spider, Fear Factor, and do all that stuff? People like to be entertained. And Africa has always been an aspirational dream for so many people. I may never hunt there, but they're always interested in it. And so anyhow, he said, well, more or less, I'm going to take your money. I'll let you produce the show. We basically had the meeting in a broom closet. I mean, and anyhow, so we put our show on the first year. The next year we came back. He said, guys, come on in my office here. Dave, sit in my chair. And I mean, come on, I'm going to take you guys to lunch today. We flew out to Temecula, California.
Things
the game
have changed, huh?
And he just said, I want to be man enough to say when I was wrong. He said, you guys have developed an incredible audience very, very quickly, and your numbers are great, and they're growing. And I just did not think that people, because there's a lot more people going to hunt a whitetail than a Cape buffalo or a leopard, but everybody's interested in it. And what you do truly is different. And that formula that we started 20 years ago is still, we haven't changed the formula.
Still works.
It still works. We're still doing the same thing. As you know, we've morphed into some different series, but the formula didn't need to change because it really was right off the get-go. It was right.
Yeah. And
we felt in our bones that it was right, and we were proving that it was. People are interested in, adventure hunting, and there is something different hunting Cape buffalo than hunting hunting whitetail deer, or hunting elephant or leopard, the dangerous game, none of us want the reality, the end game, but we all want just that thought when you unzip that tent in the morning,
it's go time.
Well, but could it be the day, my number's up?
Yeah.
Because it does happen, and that's part of the game.
Wow. That's very exciting. And you mentioned how aspirational Africa is to a lot of folks, and I'm certainly in that camp. And I think so many of us that grow up, out on the prairie or in the eastern part of the country where it's primarily whitetail and dense woods, or even the western hunter where you are getting in mule deer and elk. There's something, again, I think aspirational is the perfect word. I'm not even sure of another synonym for that embodies it. But you dream about it. One day maybe I could. And you see the photos, the videos like you mentioned where it's action-packed, and that there's something there that grabs the adventurous spirit that I think almost all outdoorsmen and hunters naturally have, and so they gravitate towards that.
In Africa, there's not another place that captures Spain's got great hunting, but people don't probably dream about Spain. Canada has, great
World class.
Yeah, but Africa has that just literal international appeal. And, part of it's because of the great writing that's been done in Africa. You got, Hemingway, Roosevelt got it started. Americans got introduced to the safari as an experience with his 1909 safari that he did with Kermit, his son. And he wrote the great book, African Game Trails. And that literally introduced, the American society to the possibility of, what we still call the last great adventure, Africa. Yeah. And then, different writers, of course, Papa Hemingway came by and he was in the 40s and 50s and he's writing. And then Bob Ruark came in after him. Lots of different writers. Certainly Craig Boddington had an immense,
living legend in that regard, Craig, for sure.
And we like, and I don't want to say we like to think, because I know from what people, I can't tell you how many times I've been stopped here at this show, and people, come up and say, hey, I want to tell you how much we've always appreciated it, and I want you to know we just booked our first safari here at DSC, and I'm telling you, you guys showed us we could do this.
Yep. That's got to put a smile on your face.
I did an episode not long ago called Dreams with a Deadline. We all can dream about this. I want to do this. I want to climb Everest. I want to lose 50 pounds, whatever it is. But until you take action and you make a commitment, and in our world, that's in the form of a safari deposit check.
Yep. You put some money down.
Now
and
you have a dream
and
you have a deadline. And I've had probably 5 or 6 guys tell me, just booked our first safari. I would have never done it without watching you guys. And you guys, show that it's affordable or it's attainable. If you've got to sacrifice, to be able to write that check and, save up for it, the experience will be worth it. And boy, that is just, when a guy tells me that, I say, you have no idea. You made my day.
Yeah. Well, you say that. I've not heard a single person who was apprehensive about that to come home from their first African safari and regret doing it. Oh. And in fact, it's the opposite. Now they're thinking about selling kidneys because they want to go move there.
They're already planning their second safari before they've left the first safari. Oh, that happens. Yep. And I've got a friend, and he's probably been on 45 safaris. He did his first one in 1974, and he booked a 28-day trip to Tanzania. He said, I'm going to get this out of my system. I'm going to do it once. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to try to shoot everything available to me in the areas I'm going to hunt, and that's going to be it. That's going to be it. And I told you how. He's been back and he's elderly, and there's a whole lot more behind him than in front of him, but he still gets over there, and he just enjoys being in camp now. And he can afford it, and he enjoys introducing friends to it and taking grandsons and stuff, and that it's a special place.
That is awesome. So that sounds like a pretty good synopsis of how things came to be. So there's a special relationship between Safari Classics and Hornady Manufacturing. How did that come to be, and what does that relationship produce? Because we've got some TV shows that you guys do for us that are just phenomenal.
Well, people wonder how the outdoor television business, works, and it's kind of, we call it pay to play. Okay. If you produce Seinfeld, you get a venture capitalist, so we're going to produce a pilot and a couple of shows. You take it to NBC, and they look at it, and they say, yeah, we like it. We want to buy it and fund it, and then we're going to pay you royalties or whatever deal. That's not the way this business works. Okay. There's, you have to have a platform. Our platform partners for over 20 years have been the Outdoor Channel and Sportsman's Channel. But, you as a producer, pay for your own airtime. Okay. And then you take that and you sell that to sponsors. And, whatever the difference at the end of the year between what you paid the network, what you paid in travel, cameraman, employees, and all that, if there's anything left, we call that your profit. And, so the more sponsors you have, the better sponsors you have, the more profitable you can be. And look, Seth, we're capitalists. We work really, really hard, but we make a decent living at it. Yeah. A lot of producers, I don't ever, this is what I do for a living. And some people think, well, I'll get into it because I'll be able to get all these free hunts, or I'll get free taxidermy, or some guy, I'll go into bankruptcy, but it's okay if people recognize me at SCI or DSC or wild sheep. You know, we run our business like a business because that's
It's
what
a business,
that's what it is. So job number one was having quality sponsors, keeping them happy, and Hornady was literally our second sponsor that we had. And not only did they come on with tracks, we eventually were creating such a multitude of content, and it really was Steve Hornady's idea. He said, what could we do? I know how much we're producing. He said, I'd like to talk to you about doing a Hornady, sponsored by Hornady as the presenting sponsor, and we ended up calling it Dark and Dangerous. So tracks, generally speaking, we do theme shows sometimes. I'll do a show on the hunt for buffalo or, leopard, Africa's greatest chess game. But generally it's a show, where, Seth, if you're coming on safari, well, basically you're met at the airport and we're with you from the fly into camp through the entire safari, and put you on the deal. It's kind of a documentary of your safari. Now, Hornady's Dark and Dangerous is a little bit different. It's a really cool, unique format. So let's just say the first show of the year, Seth is hunting Cape buffalo in Tanzania, Dave is hunting leopard in Zimbabwe, and Steve is hunting plains game in Namibia. Well, we'll start those shows. We'll go through them, and, it'll be back after the commercial break. Okay, now Seth has just got on tracks of a big elephant, and, you're pursuing that. And then okay, well, back to Namibia. Steve has just spotted a big kudu, and, they're making a move. And a couple of weeks into it, you'll get your elephant, and you'll cycle off the show. Steve and Dave will be heading towards the end of their safaris, but we'll introduce somebody new. Well, here comes somebody else. They're hunting bongo and CAR. So you've got 3 different episodes that are going at any one time, and it kind of moves around and
action-packed.
Well, it's action-packed, but you're getting to see a whole lot of Africa in each episode.
Okay.
And that has proved to be, we had never done one like that, but it proved,
good format.
And I get a kick out of Steve because, we'll be walking around these deals and people, Mr. Hornady, I love your show. And he said, yes, it is my show. And Steve gets a big kick. I think he enjoys the recognition, but we both enjoy people saying that is really one of the most entertaining shows on the network. I mean, I just like the format, and Steve comes, Steve is a genuine guy. There's no pretense with Steve Hornady. He, you know what Steve is thinking,
yes,
good or bad.
Yep.
And Steve has always had a way. He and I just hit it off when we met. We kind of have the same personality. We have a sarcasm. Both of us are absolutely deadly with practical jokes. And we have played some that are so epic with each other. Neither one of us ever hardly believes anything the other says because we're trying to look where the bear trap is we're about to fall in. But I tell you, I love Steve Hornady and all you guys. I mean, you guys are, well, we don't look at Hornady as sponsors. I mean, you guys are family with us. I mean, we have deep ties and friendships to this company, and not just because of the people, Seth, for the product.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't go on a safari and shoot something if you don't have something to shoot.
Well, look, there's different. We always try to be very frank and very honest in our promotions of products. And we're in a fortunate situation, that we've been around long enough. Our sponsor partners have stayed with us for years. It's a terrible world if you're out there having to chase new sponsors all the time. Probably says you're not doing something right if you're always now adding new sponsors is fine, but if you're Hornady one year, brand X the next year, and then brand B the next year, you're not satisfying the sponsor or the market, and that's really important to us. But to develop that relationship with the people, and which then translates into the product, and some of these products, we've I don't want to take any kind of credit, but we are consulted on.
Sure.
We're thinking about doing this or that, and we want you to try this. You guys are all hunters. I just cannot imagine a manufacturer of most of the products out here being successful if the people that are building it
aren't passionate,
don't understand the use for it, and they're not passionate, and they don't use every product that a customer will walk into a store or order online from Hornady, believe me, that has been shot by you guys, by the engineers.
Oh, yeah.
And then the staff, everybody up to, including Jason and Steve, they are hunters, and they'll say, we're out testing products that to make sure it makes the grade and something we're comfortable for you to go hunting with, whether it's your whitetail or a charging bull elephant.
Yep. Yeah, that is something that I can say, and I've mentioned it on our podcast many times, that we take so incredibly serious, almost to the point where it feels like, and I've been on our ballistic development group and our product development group at Hornady, it feels sometimes like we're almost doing things selfishly, because when I was designing products, I was designing products for me. I was trying to design products that I deeply wanted to use, that I knew were going to be great and improve my success. And as a corollary, it also helps, the shooting industry as a whole. Now, that's not our focus, but like I said, it almost feels like that because I'm such a passionate user, and the entire product development team, they're hunters, they're shooters, they're competitors, and we do that purposefully. It's something that we, like I said, take very serious. So I was going to ask you about, there's some other shows that have spawned. Now, is the format similar to Hornady's Dark and Dangerous?
Well, we have another show called Trijicon's World of Sports Afield.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Trijicon is a long-time,
Right.
partner of ours. And, they're title sponsor, and DSC is the title sponsor of tracks across Africa. But, of course, you guys are what we call major sponsors.
Sure.
And we have smaller sponsorship packages available. But every one of our big major sponsors, Trijicon, Remington, Hornady, DSC, each time we create a series, they migrate over to that as well. It's not one or the other.
Okay.
You guys sponsor all of our deals. Now, the neat thing about the Trijicon show, it allows us to kind of, because I love Africa, but like you, I like hunting.
I like hunting.
I like
period.
travel. I like traveling, and I like seeing new places, and I've done that most of my adult life. And the Trijicon show, we called it the World of Sports Afield because one of the partners in it is Sports Afield magazine.
Okay.
So that show is exactly it's a video content exactly like the written content of Sports Field magazine, America's oldest, most exciting adventure hunting publication. It's not trout fishing. We don't shoot grouse and ducks and stuff. It is international big game hunting.
You can't say that without putting a smile on somebody's face.
Well, that's it.
So adventurous.
So for that, for that show, I mean, we could be in Texas hunting whitetail, Tanzania the next week, Russia,
anywhere in the world.
Russia, anywhere on planet Earth, and we have now visited all 5 of the continents on that series, and we're circling back several times doing that.
Wow.
So we really the world of Sports Afield is very descriptive of that series. We're really proud of it, and it's fun for us because it kind of it spreads your horizons.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it sounds like with the shows, the format of the show, the sponsorships, the relationships, and then the content creation is just amazing. So changing gears from TV show a little bit, you as a company and then you as an individual, Dave, especially with Dallas Safari Club, so much of that focus is conservation and making the hunting world better than when you got into that. So what does Safari Classics and what does Dave do in regard to the boards, the committees, the conservation, that kind of thing?
Well, when I walk around this thing, I mean, my company, we're on deck here about 2 hours before the show starts and about 2 hours after the last hammer falls on the last auction item of the evening. We have an incredibly close working relationship. Not only is everybody in my company lifetime members of DSC, my partner Tim sits on the DSC board proper, the DSC board. I sit on the DSC Foundation board.
Okay.
And then we were both founding members of what we call the DSC Frontline Foundation board, which is a financial assistance fund set up to help professional hunters in Africa, guides, outfitters, their staff anywhere in the world. And 3 years ago, we now are including, the anti-poaching personnel. It's a financial fund where if an accident happens in the line of providing professional services, somebody's hurt, or somebody's killed. And, it started with, one of our senior hunters at Chafuti Safaris, which we were the American partners of, a big firm. We were as big as it was for about 10 years. But, we had one of our professional hunters was killed.
Wow.
And we ended up, between Tim and myself and some of his clients and people that had heard about it, we raised about $60,000 for his widow.
Wow.
Within about a month. And Tim and I said, we need to talk to DSC. This is something, there's something here.
Yeah.
And of course, DSC jumped on that with both feet because DSC sees everybody here as a partner. You're not a customer as much as vendors here are partners of DSC. The money that DSC makes off this show, and a lot of it comes from booth sales and stuff, that is what funds what we call conservation through hunting.
Sure.
And the board that I sit on, the DSC Foundation, we're a fundraising, arm of DSC because, for years and years, DSC, our main revenue source, we're here. It's a 4-day convention in January. And that's a little bit of a scary business proposition if you think about it.
It is.
Or, a business plan, because what if something comes along, something like COVID, that knocked us down for a year, and you realize you've got to have alternative fundraising sources because to win our fights, it takes money.
It does.
Good wishes and pats on the back and attaboys are not going to win these fights. Like we're in the fight of our life for importation is the battleground right now, and the antis say, now they've never cared about the animals. The animals are just their means to a greater end. Science has proven years and years and years and years where hunting is thriving, animal populations explode.
Yeah.
Where hunting is stopped, the animal has no more value to the local people, especially in rural areas like Africa and in lots of Asia and stuff. When a local population and a local government benefits from the financial windfall of legal, regulated sport hunting, they now have an investment in the animals. And so, for instance, we say in Africa, like Kenya, they took away the animals. When a guy's out there working 5 days a week, 6 days a week in his little maize patch, and that's his livelihood and what he eats. 2 bull elephants move in there and they wipe it out in one night. Well, he's got an old muzzle loader and he's shooting a piece of shower curtain rod at him, anything to get them out of the field. And if they run off and they die, fabulous. And nobody, utilizes the meat or anything. They're just monsters in his everyday life. He wants them out of there. Now, that's how it happens. If there's a poacher operating in an area, they'll tell the guy, there's a bunch of elephants there. Come shoot them all.
Oh, wow.
Now, if that happens in a country but again, Kenya doesn't have hunting, and their wildlife population has shrunk to about 1/8 of what it was in the 1950s.
Really?
So they stopped hunting in 1978, and their animal populations, have just dropped off the scale.
Wow.
You have a country like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has a carrying capacity of 38,000 elephants. We have over 80,000 elephants in the country right now, and we have it's one of the greatest conservation stories. We need to hunt a lot more elephants than we're allowed to do to keep the population stable, and elephants can wipe out the habitat.
That's a big animal.
They can wipe it out in an incredibly short period of time if they're not, regulated. But anyhow, there are values. So that same farmer in Zimbabwe, if he gets his field damaged or whatever, he understands, we work with the communities over there. We work with the communal, tribes and stuff. And each one elephant we shoot is basically generally worth about $5,000 of cash into that community. $5,000 of U.S. currency into rural Zimbabwe is unbelievable.
Carries a little stroke with it.
Not to mention the meat is freely given to the community. employment opportunities, which are non-existent in most rural areas. And we're hiring trackers, we're hiring skinners, we're hiring cooks, we're hiring people that take care of the camp staff, mechanics, road builders, everything. Lucky is the rural citizen that lives in an area of the hunting community, because he has so much opportunity not available to those that don't live in those type of areas. So hunting not only carries its weight, I mean, it delivers a better life than they could ever even pray to imagine, without it. So, the conservation through hunting, imperative, it works all over. It's
been demonstrated
everywhere in the world.
It flat works. And that's such an amazing story that it's almost preaching to the choir, because I feel like as a community of hunters, we understand that. And the people that don't want to understand that don't want to understand that. They kind of probably purposefully turned a blind eye to it, because it's been demonstrated time and time again that, hunting conservation works, or conservation through hunting. That's a good way to put it. And it sounds like you personally, in between Safari Classics and obviously everybody here at DSC, putting a lot of effort and emphasis on that, because it's cool to go on a hunt, but it's also cool to prolong that and cultivate that environment and the culture, so that your sons and your sons' sons and your sons' sons' sons can enjoy the same thing and have healthy, sustainable populations.
Well, you can see it at work when you go over there. I mean, you will see the employment happening, and you'll drive through some very impoverished areas, but you will see what opportunity, hunting offers the people. Everything from the most basics of things to keep you alive, food, which is, shared. And I couldn't begin to tell you how many hundreds of meat drop-offs I've done in Africa, and to see everybody pouring out of there and just, smiles that big in a population that doesn't have a lot to smile about. But when that meat pulls up, and man, I mean, everybody, even the little kid, they learn, they got their little pot, and you carve a big old piece off, and man, it's very satisfying to see your dollars at work, and you see these people employed. And when you drive into that camp and those people there to greet, and they're dancing and they're clapping, that's not an act. They are
excited.
Thrilled to have you there.
That's awesome, and like you said, satisfying to know that you're taking part in that.
It absolutely is. And again, when you're supporting an outfitter, the outfitter's supporting that. Your part of it is coming in and spending the dollars with them, and buying the tags, and most successful safari operations now have pet projects like anti-poaching projects that are in part and largely supported by customers. And they'll say, listen, I think you've seen our area, you've seen our guys, that whole shed over is full of snares, and we've caught 32 poachers this year, and we make a lot. Our foundation makes a ton of grants to anti-poaching.
Yeah, well, that's something that needs to be taken serious.
And we film it a lot. We're in those villages. We've been in on raids. Our camera crews have slept in the dirt, sneaking up and trying to nail these guys. Wow. And we show the suffering of the animals and stuff, because you got to put it in front of people's faces.
Sure.
Dying by a snare is a terrible thing. Either the hyenas come and eat you alive if they find you, before a guy with a big spear that just comes there and jabs you 50 times before you. I mean, that's a terrible thing. Poachers, whether it's just the guy poaching for the pot, or the guy that's, doing it as a criminal enterprise, which is a lot of it.
Really?
It is, we fight them, and we fund fights against them. I mean, it is a battleground that we are intent on trying to win.
Excellent.
But it is it's just like fighting the Taliban. I mean, they're dug in. It's their land. They can be difficult to defeat, but they can be defeated. We're one of the things there's a guy named Keith Sparks, and he's got a deal called Take Action Trust. A game changer in the world of poaching, especially in Africa, has been the use of canines.
Oh, really?
And where they have the one thing we don't have. They can see at night. We can if you have night vision, but we don't have the nose. And teaching these dogs to get on the tracks of these poachers.
Wow.
Where they can do it at a run, and even your best, buffalo trackers having to, track people, and it's a slow going deal, but they're
Gone.
They're 5 miles away as you're trying to look at which direction they actually took. And he puts that dog down there, and that thing shoots like a bullet out there, and you got a GPS, and you guys better be in shape, the handlers, and armed, because you're taking, it's just like, hunting a mountain lion or something. The dogs follow, you follow the dog.
Yep.
And
wow.
And we are putting a lot of financial assistance behind various dog programs. I think the one Keith has with Take Action Trust, but he's training the dogs in Zim, but now they are shooting off
everywhere.
Into a lot of different areas. Everywhere there's not tsetse flies. Unfortunately, we can't get them into tsetse areas because the tsetse flies their bite is fatal to domestic animals.
Oh, wow.
So, a chicken, a dog, anything like that, a tsetse fly, you can get in them and it'll kill them. But, throughout a lot of southern Africa, you don't have tsetses.
Okay.
So, these dogs are a game changer. I mean, they can run at night. They are a 24-hour-a-day anti-poaching weapon. But I've been
awesome.
in some of the camps watching the training and stuff. Man, these things are just unbelievable, and they are changing the landscape. And it's some of my favorite grants. I'm always a champion for that grant. When some of these canine opportunities come by, we usually jump on them pretty hard on the foundation because we have seen the boots on the ground success of them.
Yeah, well, and canines used for a variety of things, but on the military side and certainly in the policing side,
it's the same thing.
They're so smart, and the breeds that are selected and how they're trained, they're so eager to work, and they'll work themselves to death if you let them a lot of times, and it's neat to see a dog well trained that is tenacious.
Well, we had one of our best dogs, a female, and she literally was one of our, you have superstars and players or dogs, and she was. And just a couple of months ago, she got too far out in front of the pack and ran into a camp of guys that had camped down for the evening, but they had machetes, and they literally cut her to pieces.
Down in a blaze of glory.
Brother, you want to talk about, tears hitting the dirt when everybody got up on that scene, and they had just cut her to pieces, and she was still alive, but she just outdistanced everybody else, and she got into the fight before everybody else could actually get there. One dog you can deal with, 2 or 3 dogs coming at you from different angles. Yeah. Brother, that's a whole different deal.
Yeah. Well, you can rest assured that dog, although it sounds like a pretty poor ending, I bet she was doing everything that she had ever wanted to do as a dog.
She was doing what she was born to do, and anyhow, we did make the arrest and stuff. And,
excellent.
And so it
wasn't for naught.
It wasn't for naught, and so many pups that came out of her are destined to be her equal or better.
That's awesome.
And it is dog guy. You know how dog guys are. They are very attached to their dogs.
It's like losing a family member sometimes. It really is.
The military guys that run dogs and stuff, when they send that thing in there, you just, your heart, you love that animal. Yep. It's a working partner. But human beings and dogs have had affinities, unlike any other, partnership. Yep. And when you send them into harm's way, there is just, it's hard. I mean, and when you lose them, it's just like those military guys. They lost a partner, that's a 4-legged warrior. And you learn over there, a warrior runs towards the fight, right? They run toward the gunfire, not away from it. And not all warriors fight on 2 legs.
Right on.
But we got a lot of 4-legged warriors, and they're followed by 2-legged warriors.
Yeah.
And when they get there together, the bad guy's in trouble.
Excellent. Well, and that's such a big problem, and it sounds great that it's being attacked from so many different angles with so much ferociousness. Because it's definitely something that needs to be handled. And the Dallas Safari Club, I learned a lot about the Dallas Safari Club as a whole, and you hear about it, and before you really know what's going on, you kind of have this idea, or at least I did, that Dallas is in the name, but they do conservation efforts all over the entire world, not just Africa, not just in Texas.
Based in Dallas, representing the world.
Yep, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
Based in Dallas, representing the world.
That's, a good way to put it. Well, Dave, on behalf of everybody at Hornady, our partnership is always great. We love what you do for us and what you do for conservation and what you do for the shooting community as a whole and the hunting community. We really do appreciate it, and I appreciate you. I mean, you're a busy guy at this show, as you mentioned, not getting a lot of sleep, and I appreciate you carving out some time to talk with us.
Well, I've been looking forward to it, and right behind us, I just glanced over your shoulder, and I want to close by saying this. I was starting on the story earlier, and I got off track, but there's some guys out there saying, well, I trust my life to my sleeping bag. I trust my life to my boots. I trust my life to this. I don't trust my life to my toothbrush and all that.
Yeah.
You know what I do trust my life to?
Hornady, dangerous game.
Bullets.
Yeah.
And because when I say, that is you talk about the front line and the last line, that's the thing, the business end, not the rifle, not, if that doesn't perform, it's all for naught, and you get killed doing what we do. When I say, and not just trusting, the quality of the product, but literally in Africa, every time we hunt, it is not hyperbole that we trust our life to Hornady ammunition. You can't really give, if you're saying that honestly, you can't really give a company a better credo.
No, you can't.
Kudos than that.
Yeah, no,
I mean, there's not too many things you literally trust your life to. And every time we unzip the tin over there, and we're loaded with Hornady ammunition, which we are, you accept that you may eventually come down to a situation you got to prove it.
Yep.
And your equipment has to prove itself. And if a buffalo or an elephant doesn't get knocked down, it won't be the ammunition's fault. It'll be the shooter's fault.
Yeah.
But I know I go into the bush, and our clients that hunt with and we ask, well, I want to know what you're shooting. Which brand? Yeah, I can kill a buffalo. It's not my favorite choice. And as an outfitter, our clients lean heavily on our advice. And, literally, I say, well, what do you? I said, well, you know what we shoot, and we don't just shoot it for a deal. And I hate to say Steve Hornady, get to hear this because he may not pay me. We're going to shoot Hornady bullets. If Hornady decided to start making golf clubs tomorrow, we would be looking for another bullet. We know our bullet.
Excellent.
And I mean, we would shoot our Hornady ammunition until we ran out of it.
That's
and
awesome.
You couldn't refill the order. Then we'd have to make a plan B. But you make the best ammunition, in the industry. And even better, it's made by the best people in the industry.
Gosh.
And we are so honored. Like I said, we don't think you guys as our sponsors. Y'all are our partners.
Excellent. Yes,
and we
Dave,
hope y'all feel the same.
It's definitely well accepted in the Hornady four walls that, yes, this is definitely a partnership, and we're happy for it. So thanks again, Dave.
Thanks for having me on. For everybody that had to sit there and listen to my squeaky voice, I'm recovering from the flu. And have only talked to about 15,000 people in the last 4 days
of a trade
so,
show.
Man, for all the little coughing and I'm sorry, but I hope we powered through it.
We did indeed. Everybody out there, hopefully you enjoyed this one. And if you aren't already, hopefully this inspires you to get out, join an organization that's focused on conservation, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.